Hello and welcome into this week's ARCA Menards Series Rewind show right here on ARCA Racing News Now. As always, I'm your host, Garth Allen. Thank you once again for joining me today. If this is your first time catching a Racing News Now video, we are in our hashtag Race to 1K. Go down below, hit that subscribe button for me. It is free to do. The quicker we get to 1,000 subscribers, the quicker YouTube will let us do mobile live streaming, which will allow us to live stream when we are giving you coverage from the track, which will vastly improve both the quality and quantity of coverage that we are able to give you from the track. So if you haven't subscribed already, go down below and do it. It is free to do. While you're down there, hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss a thing going forward from RNN. On today's ARCA Rewind, we're looking back at the ENEOS 150 presented by Napa Auto Parts. 150 laps, 56.2 miles around the 3/8 mile Colorado National Speedway in Erie, Colorado. This was quite the race. It didn't start out that way. Honestly, quite boring in the beginning of the race. Just one of those logging laps kind of things. We never had a break in this race, so no break for pit stops, adjustments, that kind of thing. Whatever you started with was whatever you finished with. And sometimes that works well, sometimes it doesn't for the racing product. In this case, I think it actually worked in the favor of the race. We had long green flag stints in this race, but as we came to the end of the race, it turned into one of those classic short track races. It's 2 years in a row now. We've had some really good classic short track racing at this track in the ARCA Menards Series West. We've had quite the recent history at Colorado National Speedway, and it just continued today. 5 caution flags in this race for a total of 22 laps. First one came early at lap 7 as Bobby Hillis Jr. spun in turn 2. Then a debris caution at lap 38. Then a long green flag run until we got much later into the final third of this race. Track Pass seemed to have some issues there in the middle portion of the race between these two cautions. We didn't really miss a whole lot. It was just a green flag run, no lead changes in that time, no real exciting battles for position in that time, so no real loss in that time, but it was a little disappointing to not have any kind of coverage at that point. A debris caution at lap 108 would slow the field down once again for the third time, and then at lap 127, Todd Souza spun in turn 3 to set up a final 20-lap dash to the finish, and then we went to overtime as the leaders were beating and banging for the lead, and we got that classic short track racing moment. Holly Holland got turned by Jack Wood in turn 4, and that set up an overtime finish which continued the excitement in this race. 2 drivers spent time out front in this race. It's the 2 drivers you become accustomed to seeing out front this season in the ARCA Menards Series West, Jesse Love and Blaine Perkins. Love led the vast majority of this race at 144 laps, with Blaine Perkins only spending 9 laps out front. These 2 would be the 2 that were beating and banging contact left and right through the final 20-25 laps of this race, beating and banging for that win, and it was so exciting to watch. That's the short track racing I like to see. Nobody all out wrecks each other, although Jesse Love did take a swipe at Blaine Perkins at one point, and I think if he'd had his way and was able to, I think that was the exact intent there, was to turn Blaine Perkins all the way around. Didn't quite get the angle right and wasn't able to do it, just made contact, but we kept both cars pointed in the right direction, and that's the important part. They were able to both finish the race, although both of them definitely beaten up. The 9 car definitely looked a lot more beat up than the 19 at the end of the race, but that was what it came down to at the end of this race, was beating and banging, hard fought short track racing, and Jesse Love was able to come out on top in this one for his 3rd ARCA Menards Series West victory of the season, now tying Blaine Perkins. They each have 3 wins this season. Sam Mayer, the only other driver to have won a race this season. Remember, Mayer won the season opener at the Las Vegas Bull Ring. These 2 are your heavyweights this season. These 2 are the ones that will be battling for this championship all the way down to the season finale at Phoenix, and it is going to be an incredible championship battle. These 2 continue to find themselves at the front of the field week in and week out, and they're going to be trading blows, they're going to be trading wins, everything, all the way right down to Phoenix. It has been exciting to watch, and it's going to continue to be exciting to watch through the rest of this season. These 2 are really putting on a show right now. Blaine Perkins, he gave it his all and unfortunately was not able to come away with the victory in this one. Led a few laps there at the end of the race, was able to come out front for a few laps, but ultimately Jesse Love was able to get back around him and pick up the W. Gio Scelzi spent some time there close to the lead in this race, actually battled for the lead side by side, but unfortunately was never able to quite get out front in this race. Scelzi is getting closer. Gio Scelzi will win a race by the end of the season, mark my words. He's really going to have trouble getting around Jesse Love and Blaine Perkins to do it, but I think he's going to be able to do it by the end of the season. He's right there on the cusp of it. He's figuring out what he needs to do to win these races, and I think by the end of the season we're going to see a win out of Gio Scelzi. I think the same thing out of Gracie Trotter there in fourth. I think she's got the potential to win by the end of the season. She's got 3 races remaining to do it. Jack Wood, strong top 5 run there in the 5th position. Trevor Huddleston, off all day. Never really had much speed. Only in the top 5 at one point because Gracie Trotter and Jack Wood got together, and that allowed Huddleston and Holland to get into the top 5 very briefly, but then Jack Wood and Gracie Trotter ultimately were able to get back into the top 5. Very off day for Trevor Huddleston. Very off season for Trevor Huddleston. It has surprised me that he's never really been able to do a lot this season. With what we saw out of him last year, it's been very disappointing what we've seen out of Trevor Huddleston this season. Holly Holland there in 7th. I thought maybe after the last outing that we finally had seen her turn a corner and we were going to start seeing better runs out of her. Unfortunately, more of the same out of her today. I really want to see her do well. We just haven't seen it yet. Was running fairly well there at one point. Again, was in the top 5 at one point and then got turned by Jack Wood to set up overtime and ultimately ended up in the 7th position. Todd Souza 8th. Takuma Koga started this race in 5th, was as high as 4th at one point. Very good start to this race out of Takuma Koga, ultimately landed in the 9th position. Bridget Burgess rounded out the top 10. Your 11th and final finisher in this race was Bobby Hillis Jr. in the 27 Toyota. So that's your results from Colorado National Speedway, the ENEOS 150. If we have the post-race Zoom call, it will be stuck in right here. If not, if you haven't heard from your top finishers by this point, we're going to head over to the point standings after this race and take a look at this points battle now between Jesse Love and Blaine Perkins. It has been extended back after this race. It was 1 point coming into this race between Jesse Love and Blaine Perkins. It has been extended back out now to 7 points heading into the final 3 races of the season. Perkins still definitely close enough to pick up this championship. Jesse Love is not comfortable by any means at this point, but he does have a bit of breathing room there with a 7-point gap over Perkins. He has a little bit of room to breathe heading into Roseville here in about a month and a half. Gracie Trotter firmly in the 3rd spot now, 36 points back. Trevor Huddleston 4th, 41 points back. Now in danger of losing 4th to Gio Scelzi, who's only 43 points off the lead now, 2 points behind Huddleston there. So we've got a decent battle going on about 3rd to 5th right now between Trevor Huddleston, Gracie Trotter, and Gio Scelzi. Unfortunately, I don't think any of those 3 are going to be able to make their way back into the championship battle. I think that is firmly Jesse Love and Blaine Perkins at this point, but definitely a good battle for 3rd there among Trotter, Huddleston, and Scelzi. Todd Souza there at 6th. Holly Holland still sits down in the 7th position in points. But that is your point standings. 7 races into the 2020 ARCA Menards Series West season, and I believe that'll do it for us on this ARCA Rewind show. Got a kind of discussion video coming up early in this week. Keep an eye out for that. It'll be something you definitely will be interested in if you are a fan of NASCAR and the ARCA Menards series. So keep an eye out for that. NASCAR Heat 5 stream coming up on Wednesday, 6 p.m. as we continue our career mode there. Next ARCA Watch Party will, of course, be Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern for the ARCA Menards series at Gateway. That'll be a fun one. Definitely, if you're not hanging out in the watch parties, you need to be. So come hang out 6 p.m. Saturday as we watch that race together, and then of course a rewind show for that as well. I want to thank our patrons as always, President Gambit and Regional Manager William Holmes. Thank you as always for your support of RNN. If you want to be a patron, hit that link down below in the description, patreon.com/racingnewsnow. Definitely appreciate it if you want to do that. But that's going to about do it for this one. Thank you as always for your support of RNN. This has been the ARCA Menards Rewind Show. I'm Garth Allen for Racing News Now.